Palette Podcast After Dark number 12. We are bringing back After Dark again this season, and we are ready to dive straight into our topic of discussion. Joining me, as always and as usual, is accoladed, titled,
inebriated,
slightly inebriated, but not currently, Will over here, and I am your headache-ridden Jason.
Yeah, we're on like the opposite sides of the spectrum. I am trying to induce a headache. You're trying to get rid of yours.
Yep, but headache or not, good, comfortable or not, I hope you will get cozy and warm because we are gonna be going hot and heavy.
Yeah, we're about to unload some pent rage, based on, recent events.
Well, maybe not rage, but frustration, stupidity.
Yeah. Let's see where it goes, right? Let's see, how angry to how just disappointed we are with certain things.
So, while back...
What are we talking about here, you know?
So, let me set the stage, Will. A while back...
Set the stage in Tokyo, right?
Yes. A while back... we're not going to Tokyo to record, but...
One day we will. But
very likely, yes.
Back in March of this year, right? March 2023? I think that was when they did March 4th. That's when it happened.
Right.
Because I remember it was my birthday weekend.
I see. That izakaya place was pretty dope.
Very dope.
So, our discussion is going to be about anime and manga awards with special focus on the Crunchy Anime Awards that was done, as Will mentioned, in March 2023, the 7th annual Crunchyroll Anime Awards.
Yeah. So, unlike the previous iterations, this was the first time in a long time that they had a live audience, but also doing it outside of the U.S. As mentioned, this took place in Tokyo at the main banquet hall of the Grand Prince Hotel Shin Takanawa in Tokyo, or the new hotel. And
I think what we're going to do is, even though it is a couple of months overdue, so to speak, because it's not a hot take per se, but
I think it just took a long time for us to really process what happened from that event. So, forgive us for being tardy, but we really wanted to make sure that we, properly digested what had just gone down.
Yeah, and just due to logistical issues, but let's not focus on that part. Let's focus on the fact that we wanted to give the time for the awards to bake in the oven, so then it can be crispy red hot for us to spitball to you listeners.
So Jason mentioned we'd be going into anime and manga awards, but I think, for the first half, what we wanted to do was sort of put more of a focus on the more recent major award ceremony, which is the 7th Crunchyroll Anime Award Show that happened about 2 months ago, or 3 months ago, depending on when this releases. So this was essentially the first time, during the whole post-COVID situation, that we're able to actually get a live audience to, partake and, contribute into the actual live event of the Crunchyroll Awards.
And throughout the day, Will and I actually watched the live stream.
Yeah, we watched, part of actually, we actually watched 90% of it.
A good chunk of it for sure.
Yeah.
And
it was streamed on YouTube.
Yeah, and also I think on Twitch or on various platforms. So, guys, let's go into what GAP is known for. Disclaimers and definitions.
Let's break it down.
But the disclaimer is simple.
Yeah.
We will be talking in depth, at least the first half. I guess if you want to call it a spoiler, you can call it that. But we will go over the winners and the nominations for most, if not all, of the Crunchyroll Anime Award categories, and then give our takes on it, as well as then go into the break. And then the second half is more dedicated towards the broad overview of awards in the realm of anime and manga, what awards that probably you should pay more attention to.
Yeah, so
and maybe even its
stuff that's
relevancy.
Stuff that's like non-Crunchyroll specific, and also I guess the the repercussions and potential rewards of being listed or nominated for these specific anime awards and manga awards. So, as mentioned, we're going to be going into the Crunchyroll awards first, the 7th edition, which happened earlier this year. Sort of going to give a little bit of a background information in terms of how shows got nominated, who was responsible for doing certain things, and what categories there were. We'll just list them out right now. So, as usual, when it comes to being eligible for the Crunchyroll Awards, for this recent one, an anime series or television series in general, whether it's television or online, had to have been broadcasted in Japan between the dates of November 21st, November 2021 through to September 2022. That's the eligibility period for nominations for this edition. The voting of the year awards were there's different kinds of categories for voting. There's a split section between being main categories and fan categories. So during the whole presentation, when you were watching the stream, the first hour or so was dedicated to the fan categories, and then afterwards, the main categories were announced physically at the event itself. The whole thing itself was announced via a global live stream, anyways. So in terms of voting for specific categories, for example, the anime of the year category, it included social voting for the first time, which allowed Twitter users to vote for the category by posting the specific necessary hashtags or by retweeting it. So I don't know how many points or votes each mention or tweet gives to a specific series, but that's not for you or I to know. That's more for the Crunchyroll panel to know.
Because traditionally speaking, a lot of award shows or just award lists is determined and awarded through a panel of whether it's judges or critics. But this time around, they have included and incorporated the fans or the weebs who want to vote in kind of make an impact into these award winners or which nominations get the winning spot.
Yeah. So as mentioned with the category splits, right? So in the fan categories, there were the must protect at all costs anime character, which is a new category for every iteration of Crunchyroll's anime awards. The best opening sequence and ending sequence, 2 separate awards. Best voice acting performance in Japanese, English, Castilian, French, German, Portuguese, Spanish, and 2 new languages, Arabic and Italian. However, the best voice acting performance in Russian was dropped. Why? On top of that as well, there was also best drama anime, best action anime, best supporting anime character, which is a new category, best main anime character, and best new anime series, also a new category. There were also other new categories too, like best original anime, the presenter's choice, and the best anime song. Now, there were a few different changes as well.
Yeah, so one thing that I would like to sort of reiterate is best opening sequence and best ending sequence. That actually is not the music itself. It is more of the sequence, the direction, because they mentioned in the nominations whoever did the direction and the storyboarding. So obviously the song plays a huge role in your opening and ending sequence, but this is more focused on.
There's other factors to take note of as well, and I think that because there are separate awards for music and soundtrack and whatnot, right? So
yes,
you don't want to get those too intertwined.
Exactly. So
there were a couple ones that were dropped, like for example, a couple changes. Like for example, best continuing series was brought back after a 4-year absence. Best main character and best supporting character replaced the best main character, best boy, and best girl categories. And then, unfortunately, best antagonist, as well as something that we recently talked about as well, best fight scene, were also dropped from this iteration of the Crunchyroll Awards.
I think before we get into the nominations and the winners, I mean, it's not going to be very dry. That's in terms of just us reiterating the nominations and the winners and the breakdown. But I also want to emphasize the fact that this is done by Crunchyroll. Now, I think you will surmise several assumptions based off of the name because, yes, it is hosted, run, implemented by Crunchyroll themselves. So you might be wondering, oh, are they just going to pick ones that are their own, like Crunchyroll originals? Are they going to not focus on their competitors? Things like that. And for the most part, I would say that recently, at least, especially with this year, certain winners are very much not that biased. I mean, look, when I mean by that, as in, I mean, these award shows, just like the Academy Awards or the Oscars for live action, is very much politically based. And
sometimes, like, if something is up for nomination, you kind of already know that that's going to be the winner, no questions asked whatsoever. I mean, this award still, flung a few surprises, but for the most part, when certain awards came up, I think Jason and I were like, eye roll, pretty typical, or okay, that's very interesting. To I think sometimes we're like, wow, what the fuck is going on here? How did this win?
Yeah, and to give credit where credit is due, Crunchyroll has kind of taken the initiative for the past 7 iterations to kind of spearhead an award show dedicated to anime. And I think in of itself, that feat is worth mentioning because anime and manga, well, mostly anime in terms of the Crunchyroll Anime Awards, is not there's not a lot of anime awards that I can think on the top of my head that everyone would know offhand, whether it is for good reasons or for bad reasons. But nonetheless, we have the Crunchyroll Anime Awards, and it's there. Whether or not you think that it is a good thing or bad thing, I think the fact that we have one is sometimes better than nothing, although that also is a point of contention as well.
So what we'll do now is I think we'll go in order of how all the awards were presented. So we don't necessarily need to go through all the nominations, but we can also have our quips if we want to, because I'm sure some of them are going to be hotly contested. Starting off with the night, the first award that was presented was the...
What I would do, sorry, Will, let's talk about a very brief breakdown of the nominations, which is the most amount of nominations is awarded to...
I was thinking we could just do that as a wrap-up at the end.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because, at that point then, we kind of just give away, like, which ones would have been nominated, which would have won. Like, it's probably better just to list everything, and then afterwards we can say, so, from this, we know how many nominations this series got, that series got.
Sure. Let's go.
Right? So, first off was the Must Protect at All Costs Award. There were a lot of good nominations for this one. The ultimate winner for that was Anya Forger. No surprises there for you, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good choice.
For me, I mean, I love Boji, but I can obviously see that Anya is going to win that no matter what.
If we're being pedantic, I think Boji can protect himself more than Anya.
You saw that sweet left hook that right hook that Anya threw.
Yeah,
she's got some moves. Up next would be the best opening sequence. Now this one was extremely contested. And I think this one actually might be worth mentioning some of the nominees for this one, because man, there was Chiki Chiki Ban Ban by Queendom for Ya Boy Kang Ming.
It should have been the winner. Fucking should have been the winner.
There was Mixed Nuts by official Hige Denism, which is for Spy X Family. There was Hadaka no Yusha by Vondi for Ranking of Kings, which was my personal favorites. There's This Fire by Franz Ferdinand for Cyberpunk Edge Runners, which actually was a very good choice too.
It's also a very good choice.
Sick. And then Zankyo Sanka by Eimer for Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba Entertainment District Arc. Now, the winner, however, was also, again, a no-brainer. The Rumbling by Sim for Part 2 of Attack on Titan Final Season. I think when both Jason and I watched it, saw it, and listened to the music, completely blown away. But I think you would have gone with Chiki Chiki Ban Ban. I would have gone with Vondi's Hadaka no Yusha. That would have been my pick.
I just thought that the Queendom song was so unexpected, right?
And also, the opening sequence itself was groovy as shit, with the characters doing the dances all the way through, the fucking like eclectic mix of colors and lights. That was a very, very energetic opening.
Yeah. Now,
For me, like with the opening sequence for season 2 of Ranking of Kings, that was just like super emotional for me. And I'm also biased. I fucking love Ranking of Kings, but was it ever going to be like a question whether the Rumbling by Sim for Attack on Titan final season part 2 will win?
yeah, I think the impact of SIM is just so massive in terms of, I mean, we reported on the fact that it was
Billboard,
number 1 on the Billboard charts, right? For rock, I think, right? So to have that kind of impact is kind of like, in many ways, the Mugen Train effect of it's riding that momentum. It has so much buzz behind it. You just can't ignore it, right? But in my mind, Queendom is the way to go.
Yeah. The one that was also a no-brainer for this was, for the best ending sequence, comedy by Gen Hoshido for Spy X Family. I mean, were there any nominees that you felt might have been able to swing it? Or was there one that you were personally more invested in compared to... Because the ending sequence for Spy X Family was cute, comfy.
Yeah, I mean...
when you look at the nominations for it too, it's hard to pick anything above the Spy X Family ending sequence.
Let me think. Let me just take a look.
I mean, how was Call of the Night, the ending sequence?
I actually would pick My Dress Up Darling. It's just very bubbly and cute.
Too bad it didn't win, but nomination nonetheless. We're not gonna go into the voice acting performance.
Actually, good call on Call of the Night. Actually, I would choose Call of the Night.
Yeah,
it was actually a lot cooler. Actually, a lot more.
But
upbeat.
Again, are you gonna vote against Spy X Family again? Because it comes down to popular votes, right? So there's gonna be more Spy X Family fans. That's pretty much it.
But in my world, it would be Call of the Night.
In your world, it would be that. For me, I'll probably still go with comedy by Gen Hoshido. Now, best voice acting performance, we can't really say all that much because, yes, we do watch it in Japanese, so we don't know much about the performances in English or Castilian or Spanish, French, German, whatever. Apologies to the ones who are listening that, would have loved to hear about it. We just didn't watch it in those languages, so we can't contribute any thoughts to it. Now, the best drama anime. This one was...
I mean, one of the things that I think is a very problematic of any award show in general is what constitutes drama, what constitutes, basically in any genre category, right? With one very well-known category in the Crunchyroll, which we
definitely get into.
We'll lose our shits over. But let's ease into that, right? The best drama is just so, I don't know, man.
So the nominees, right? We're not even going to mention the winner just yet. 86 by A1 Pictures, Cyberpunk Edge Runners by Studio Trigger and CD Projekt, Dance Dance Dancer by MAPPA. We also got Katara Lives Alone by Leiden Films, and Made in Abyss, The Golden City, The Scorching Sun by Kinema Citrus. All well deserved in terms of being best drama. In some sense, I don't know about Cyberpunk Edge Runners. If there was an action category, I'd put it there instead. But like Guitar Lives Alone, Dance Dance Dancer, 86, Made in Abyss, they all deserve to be there. My personal pick would have been 86, only because I watched it and I absolutely loved it. But the winner was, for some fucking reason, Attack on Titan: The Final Season Part 2 by MAPPA.
So
this goes into your whole is there really like a one-size-fits-all kind of solution for genres when it comes to awards for anime, manga, or any award, really?
Yeah, and of course, you get very pedantic, or you play with semantics, and things become very ambiguous, right? But I think one of the things that I will be mentioning nonstop throughout this entire After Dark is why not cater a little bit more towards anime-centric awards, like maybe instead of best drama, maybe best slice of life. Because that is something that is not really... You can't really apply that to a lot of either live action or other mediums that is kind of unique within anime and manga, right?
Yeah, for example, there's K-drama awards where they award best couple, right? And that's a very K-drama-esque, K-drama-centric award.
I'm super pissed that they got rid of best antagonist.
Yeah, I don't know why they did that.
I think because they don't. I actually do know why. I mean, it's not confirmed, but my people speculate that it's because of spoilers.
Spoilers?
Which is actually a
'cause
fair thing, honestly.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I get that in terms of like not wanting to piss off fans by revealing who the big bad is.
Yeah,
Or,
because sometimes it's not clear,
Yeah.
right? Until you get spoiled, right?
or it's like, hey, that big bad actually didn't turn out to be a big bad in the end, yada, 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 you know?
Or maybe it's like Snape. I don't know.
It's like, yeah, exactly. After that, we then got the best action. Another very hotly contested category. We got Attack on Titan, Final Season Part 2 by Mappa, Cyberpunk Edge Runner, Studio Trigger, CD Projekt, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stone Ocean by David Production, Licore's Recoil by A1 Pictures, and Spy X Family with Studio and Cloverworks. You're going to start hearing kind of like the same nominees for all these
now I
awards.
understand why you put the nomination breakdown towards the end.
Yeah.
I get it now.
You know?
My bad.
The winner for Best Action, because the fact that Best Drama was won by Attack on Titan, surely it can't win that one. And I am right, because Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the Entertainment District arc by Ufotable was the winner of the Best Action Anime of 2023 for the 7th Crunchyroll Anime Awards.
Like playing devil's advocate, if I had to give one to Attack on Titan and the other one to Demon Slayer, like in this hypothetical situation, I would do it the way they did.
That way, right?
Because I think the gravity, the drama of like, the sheer weight and heaviness
I get that, yeah.
is that very much present in AOT that is definitely not there for Demon Slayer. But for action, I don't think anyone will dispute that, right? I think that is just...
That's legitimately if those are the only two nominations for both those awards, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, devil's advocate and caveat, right? But yeah, I would have made those decisions given those circumstances and restrictions for sure.
Are you comfortable with Beck's action going to Demon Slayer? Because look, Cyberpunk Edge Runners is there. For me, JoJo's Bizarre Stone Adventure is there. Licore's Recoil is pretty cool too.
Yeah, but I still think Demon Slayer, even though
too good.
Even though I haven't watched the Entertainment District arc, but knowing what takes place in the manga, that fight scene towards the end is probably like non-stop shenanigans of just eye candy everywhere, right? I think the fact that if my recollection is correct, it's like a simultaneous fight.
Yeah.
And that's when I think that is a very good indication of how good an action scene is.
Like if we're talking action sequences, yes, that would be the cream of the crop.
Yeah,
for sure. Because I think if we're talking about the overall series, then yeah, you might say Attack on Titan would have some fight in this, but I think because of what they were adapting for Part 2, final season, may not have contributed a lot of those amazing fighting sequences, action sequences. So I think Demon Slayer was pretty much a clear pick. I probably would have gone. I mean, again, the JoJo bias, but I get, of course, Demon Slayer, and I watch both. I really like Demon Slayer, so I'm not upset about them winning Best Action. I think for you, would you also then be like, Cyberpunk was also really good, but hey, it's Demon Slayer?
It's hard for me, especially when I haven't seen Stone Ocean, right?
But we both watched Cyberpunk, and dude, some of those action scenes were fucking sick.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things where it's like, I didn't pick the nominations, but I understand where they're coming from, and I also technically agree. So it's hard to weasel my way out and try to punch for another nomination to be the winner.
Yeah, that's I guess.
And it's an easy pick in that sense, right?
Easy and
you might
fine
be,
with me.
You might be like, oh, you're being quote unquote lazy, but it's also like, well, I can't fault you for saying
because Demon Slayer was really that good as an action anime series, right?
Yeah.
So next award was the best supporting character. Now nominations for this one: Hayasaka for Kaguya-sama Love is War Ultra Romantic, the first nomination they got this evening. Kage from Ranking of Kings, Rebecca from Cyberpunk Edge Runners, Tengen Uzui from Demon Slayer, and Your Forger from Spy X Family.
So here's my problem. I mean, with the many problems, is that I think the winner and the winning series is not what I would consider best supporting character.
She's not a supporting character. which also annoying for me because Anya Forger won this award, but why do you have two from Spy X Family in this category? You know,
I mean, I'm less hung up on that, even though I would be like, come on, guys.
you
as
see
well,
where you
right?
see where my gripe is, right?
But also, like, the family of 3/4, I guess, is all main characters.
Yeah.
They're not supporting characters.
so that's the thing too. Then, right? If
I would say Kage is also not. He's like a main character, right? It's Bochi and Kage.
see, I mean, I would have picked Kage, but again, it's like how much? What are the prerequisites for one being a main character and a supporting character? You know, and but in this particular instance, if your Forger and Anya Forger are both supporting characters, does that make Lloyd the main character?
Exactly.
Because he's not the main character.
That's exactly what they're saying. That's exactly what they're saying. I mean, no joke. That's literally what they're saying.
And it annoys me.
But
Does annoy me.
But let me tell you something. Sure, Spy is only technically Lloyd, but then you have the family part. The family is the whole glue that connects everything together. So they're all main characters.
It definitely got manipulated to the point where like it had to be Anya or Yor.
I think Hayasaka is a very, very good supporting character and a good shout. Rebecca as well. Yuzai.
Rebecca was that insane girl in
The lolly.
Yeah. Okay.
Shotgun lolly.
Yep. Remember her?
I would have picked her. Unfortunately, I did not watch Ultra Romantic past like I think episode 1.
Ultra Romantic was great.
I know,
yeah,
and I love her top kudere for sure, but I know for a fact due to I finished Edge Runner that Rebecca is like a super dope choice.
I mean, she's crazy, but good choice. Now, you know, because there are supporting characters, what's their purpose? Of course, is going to be propping up the main character. So the best main character, the nominations were Boji from Ranking of Kings, Chisato from Chisato Nishikigi for The Chorus Recoil, David Martinez, Cyberpunk Edge Runners, Lloyd Forger. Yeah, that's the annoying part.
There you go.
Yeah. Marin Kitakawa for Bride Dress Up Darling, with the winner being the almighty Attack Titan, Eren Yeager of Attack on Titan Final Season Part 2.
To be very fair, I think that choice is appropriate. I think that is a good choice. But it is probably not.
So it's not David Martinez?
No.
It's not Marin Kitagawa?
No.
Ooh. She's not gonna like hearing that. But again, I agree with you too. Like, who else could it have been besides Eren Yeager?
Well, I would argue that David Martinez in Cyberpunk is more of a standout main character as much as the whole crew is dope as fuck. Whereas I would say for Marin, it's essentially her show and nothing else. Lloyd, I would even be like, well, we already talked about that. Bochi, obviously, without Bochi, is like, the fuck are you going to do with Ranking of Kings, right? But Eren Yeager, though, I can't not give it to him. I have to give it to him.
I'll give you there. Now, to round off the last category for the fan categories, we have got the best new anime.
Yeah, let's go.
So I think you and I are pretty okay with the winner. I don't think there's much contention there, but as always, we do need to talk about. Well, I don't know. Is there much to talk about here?
Wait, I'm trying to see. Best new series? Is that what it is, or best? Is it best new series, right?
Yeah, best new series, best new anime. I mean, they had different names on the Wikipedia and on the Crunchyroll. But best new series, the nominees were Call of the Night by Latin Films, Cyberpunk Edge Runners, The Chorus Recoil, My Dress Up Darling, Ya Boy Kangming, with the ultimate winner being, of course, Spy X Family by Cloverworks and with Studio.
No doubt.
Ya Boy Kangming would have been my nomination to win.
I would still choose Spy X Family.
Not Call of the Night.
Yeah, no, because and here's the part where I'm speculating. Best new show, in my opinion, is I would even like go one step further and say best limited show and then best new show, whereas a new show is kind of like a long running. So then they would go into the continuing. Of course, then you can say like, well, how would you know that they won't get renewed, Jason?
Well, that's also why they took down the best continuing series. Oh no, they brought it back. They didn't bring it back, but I think again, it's just the parameters in terms of what fits into what category would then kind of get muddied.
Yeah. Also, best continuing series is also bullshit.
Yeah.
In terms of like.
We'll get to that, Jason.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
Man, I was going to be ranting. I'm waiting for you to roll your eyes back and being like, here we go. Okay, so now we start into the main categories, the categories that were presented live in Tokyo for the Crunchyroll Awards. The Best Original Anime with nominations for Birdie Wing, Golf Girl Story by Bandai Namco Pictures, Healer Girl by 3 Hertz, The Orbital Children by Production Plus H, Vampire in the Garden by Wit Studio, Yuri Deko by Science Saru, with the ultimate winner being The Chorus Recoil by A1 Pictures.
No shit.
Yeah, because all the other ones were just couldn't hold a light to it.
No way.
Yuri Deko was trash. Birdie Wing was like a sleeper hit, but really, Healer Girl you liked, but like you saw enough for it to.
When I saw it got nominated, I was like, "The fuck are you doing there?"
Yeah.
Like, I really do like Healer Girl a lot.
I think you also watched Orbital Children. You thought it was boring.
I thought it was mid as fuck.
Vampire in the Garden. You thought it was confusing as fuck.
It's flawed.
Yeah.
It was really pretty, but it's flawed.
So was there ever going to be anyone challenging the Chorus Recoil?
I mean, I am not going...
It's
I'm not
hard.
going to question Kojima, okay?
It's hard because of the fact... Like original anime, we've talked about this before. There's not going to be that many to choose from year to year, and so therefore, let's just give it to the most obvious winner, which would be The Chorus Recall. No problems there. I fully endorse that pick.
I think the fact that Healer Girl got nominated kind of shows you that they are kind of like, we gotta find something, guys, something. And when Hideo Kojima is like, yo, I kind of like Chorus Recoil or Licorice Recoil, I was like, okay, I get it.
Yep. So next award was for the best character design. So we're going to be going by the character designers' names, which are Yoshinari for Cyberpunk Edge Runners, Masanori Shino with the original design by Hirohiko Araki for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stone Ocean, Kazumasa Ishida, original design by Shinichi Fukuda for My Dress Up Darling, Atsuko Nozaki, original design by Sosuke Toka for Ranking of Kings, Cur 2, and Kazuki Shimada, original design by Tatsuya Endo for Spike's Family, with the ultimate winner being by Akira Matsushima, original design by Koyoharu Gotoge for the Entertainment District arc of Demon Slayer.
I think of all of the nominations and winners, there's only one that actually applies in my definition of character design, and that goes to Cyberpunk Edge Runners. Because everything else is adapted. So there's so much wiggle room that you can only have.
You have a fair point there, actually, because everything else was originally designed by the mangakas of those specific series.
You already have a template. And imagine the fervor and rage when it is very far from the source, right?
Like, to be fair, there were a lot of people that were like saying, hey, it should have been JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which I didn't really buy into because I liked the design. I thought it was great, but I also wouldn't have picked it over Attack on Titan because there were some very interesting character designs. But I also very clearly see your point in the fact that if we're talking about actual true character design from an original perspective, Cyberpunk Edge Runners should have really had a shoe-in this.
And here's the part that will like crumble my argument, which is, well, then what choices do you have that you can offer as nominations / winners? And that is a really hard question to answer. You know, with like the Academy Awards, Oscars, like best costume, it is something that is literally designed from scratch, and or like there might be some sort of like inspiration or some sort of indication whether it's adapted or not, but it's really hard, right? Yeah. Especially when for example, if it's a comic book series or a Marvel stuff, right? Like it's like, now, what are you gonna do?
Cyberpunk Edge Runners, the characters, they're not like truly unique, but they were definitely interesting. And the fact that you had to create something without a source material, and the other ones did have source material.
I mean, yes, it is based off of a tabletop RPG, and there's a very there's a CD Projekt Red video game.
Which then begs the question, right? And this is no like shade whatsoever. I'm not like calling anyone out, but wouldn't the best character design then go to Koyaharu Gotoge instead of Akira Matsushima, the person who actually originally designed the characters for Demon Slayer?
Honestly, I think that should be the correct answer, except it is not the mangaka award.
And this is also just us being a little bit more pedantic in terms of like what really does constitute being a character designer, because there actually is a role of being a character designer in anime direction.
Yeah, and I think there is some sort of like definition on their website, on Crunchyroll's website, but like honestly, who is going to go and check the definition?
Yeah.
But it's very easy for someone to understand, character design, you design the characters.
Yep. On to the next award, which is the Best Animation, Akebi's Sailor Uniform for Cloverworks. I wonder why they got nominated for that one. Attack on Titan Final Season Part 2 by MAPPA, Cyberpunk Edge Runners, The Second Curse of Ranking of Kings, and Spy X Family rounding out the last nomination, with the winner undoubtedly being Demon Slayer, the Entertainment District arc. My question is, how the fuck did Akebi's Sailor Uniform get nominated for Best Animation?
Because it's pretty, dude.
I see your smile, Jason. It's not just because of that. That's pretty fucking real. And then also another no fucking brainer fucking category here. The Best Continuing Series, which is actually annoying because 3 of these have already been running for a long time. So I don't know why they even be allowed to be like in this category, which is Attack on Titan Final Season Part 2, Demon Slayer Entertainment District Arc, and Jujutsu Bizarre Adventure Stone Ocean. That's just not fair, because why? Kaguya-sama Love is War and Made in Abyss. I get that they're sequels, right? But they're also super fucking reason we should talk about other shows, which of course then means that the only winner that deserves to be there would be One Piece by Toei Animation. I mean, on one hand, no shit Sherlock, but on the other hand, who the fuck decided to bring back this series just to be like gloating to the fucking One Piece fans?
So, didn't One Piece just kept on going, right?
It never stopped, except it had a little break, I think. But like, yeah, it just ran for like 1,000 episodes. I think it's also the fact that like during that year they hit their 1,000th episode milestone. So I guess that's the swing they had to
and
be
like
able
the
to be
politics behind it, right?
Yeah, I mean, fuck it. Like, I don't fucking care. I mean, I love One Piece. I love the One Piece manga, and the anime is kind of cool too.
I will never diss One Piece, but in terms of the fact that it's continuing, okay,
yeah,
all right.
On to the next one, which is the Best Romance Anime, with nominations for Call of the Night by Latin Films, the second season of Komi Can Communicate, Love After World Domination by Project Number 9, Komi Can Communicate was done by OLM, My Dress Up Darling by Cloverworks, and Shikimori's Not Just a Cutie by Dogakoba, with the winner being Demon Slayer, not Demon Slayer, finally, one that was not won by Demon Slayer, Kaguya-sama Love is War, Ultra Romantic, A1 Pictures.
I didn't even have to finish to tell you, yeah, hell yeah, it should win. It better.
I don't know. I mean, you watched Call of the Night, Komi Can Communicate, Shikimori, My Dress Up Darling. I think you.
I watched everything else except for
Kaguya-sama Love is War.
Kaguya-sama Love is. I mean,
past episode 1,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So that is the thing. You watched everything else, and you only watched one episode of Kaguya-sama, and you will still have picked Kaguya-sama, right?
Absolutely.
You can't really pick past them. I don't know. I mean, I didn't watch past season 1 of Komi Can Communicate. I've only watched a few episodes of Call of the Night. Dress Up Darling, I watched every one of them. I didn't really think it was all that much romantic. I thought it was just more ecchi than anything.
Yeah. Love After World Domination is very much hey, we don't know what else to put in here, so let's just put the you in there somewhere.
Yeah, well, ready to put your pitchfork and raise it in the air now, because we're going into the most contentious fucking category, which is the Best Fantasy Anime.
Really? Well,
yeah.
What is on the...
Here's the thing. The nominations are Made in Abyss, The Golden City of the Scorching Sun.
Extremely fantastical.
Fantastic, right? Mushoku Tensei, Jobless Reincarnation, The Second Curse by Studio Bind. Deeply entrenched in the fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Overlord Season 4 by Madhouse. Fantastical as fuck. Ranking of Kings by what studio? The Second Curve.
Yeah,
Louis.
like Disney book story as fantastical as fuck,
The
right?
openings and all that are Disney-esque, right? The case study of Vanitas, season 2, part 2 of
Yeah,
those.
but it's like Victorian era, like vampires, very fantastical.
Yeah, so of course the winner has to be Demon Slayer, the Entertainment District art by Ufotable, which, holy shit, there's enough people online that are like, this is legitimately entrenched within the Taisho era of Japanese history. The only fantasy element is that there are demons, but that's just based on folklore, which is part of the history of Japanese storytelling. What other fantasy elements are there other than shooting water and fire out of your blades?
I mean, the best fantasy category is infamous and legitimately infamous to be known as like the bullshit category, because at one point slime isekai won over jobless reincarnation, right?
Yep.
And
That was either the 5th or the 6th anime awards. I think I wrote a note down in 13, but yeah, it was actually quite recent.
and it is just so dumb that everyone very much does not give a shit about best fantasy other than to
Yeah.
throw shade at it.
But here's the thing. Even if you don't give a shit about the fantasy category, you gotta look at this and be like, how in the fuck would anybody think that Demon Slayer would fit? Like, if you give it best drama, fine. If you give it best action, perfectly okay with that. But best fantasy? What the fuck? I would rather give it best romance than anything. I know they're brother and sister, but come on. Like, there's absolutely no way that it deserves to be nominated for best fantasy.
And to make it all even dumber is Demon Slayer is in many ways the odd one out, right?
My two that I would have picked, Overlord or Mushoku Tensei. Those would have been perfectly fine. How does Mushoku Tensei get shafted this hard? I get that maybe I lost out to like Slime Isekai. Fine. I think people will have to move past that, and that's why people still don't give a fuck about the fantasy category. But to pick Demon Slayer over Jobless Reincarnation, not even give a shout out to Overlord.
I personally think that if I had the choice, even though I didn't really watch both of them, is Ranking of Kings or Made in Abyss. I think that is more appropriate, in my opinion, of what
A fantasy is, right?
exactly. And I think judging by how like word on the street is or through your mouth, it is Ranking of Kings 100%. But I think Made in Abyss, if any category, should be like a couple of nods towards like here.
Yep. So, we now go into one of the more hotly contested categories, which is the best score in anime. The nominations were fucking fire, by the way. Akira Yamaoka, because I love him so much from all the Silent Hill stuff he's done, for Edge Runners, Cyberpunk. Go Shina and Yuki Kajiura for Demon Slayer, Entertainment District arc. Kevin Penkin, Mr. Kevin Penkin, we love you still. For Made in Abyss, The Golden City, The Scorching Sun. No Name with a parentheses between the K for Spy X Family. And Genki Hikota for Ya Boy Kang Ming. But there really only was going to be Attack on Titan Final Season Part 2. The winners being Hiroyuki Sawano and Kota Yamamoto. Right? It has to be them. Right, Jason? Right, as you think,
I mean,
pensively.
Sawano, you can't. It's like
It's
Hans
hard.
Zimmer. Like, how can you not?
These were all great nominations.
All good nominations, 100%. Like, I would say. I mean, actually, because I actually didn't listen to the. So the score is the orchestral soundtrack that accompanies the anime series. So I actually did not.
And also just general music choices as well. I would assume there's going to be a lot of stuff that like is it also because there's also sound directors and music composers and whatnot. I think it's mostly from a composition perspective.
Right. So I mean, I think Sawano is very much the front runner, and obviously it won. So I'm not
not questioning it,
not
right?
questioning that. Yeah.
I did jump ahead by one category. The one that should have been next was actually the best comedy series with nominations for Kaguya-sama, Guitar Lives Alone, My Dress Up Darling, Uncle from Another World. Finally, he got a fucking nomination. I'm glad his YouTube career is kicking off. Your Boy Kangming by PA Works, and the winner being, of course, Spy X Family with Studio Cleverworks.
I actually think that's a pretty good choice.
I really did like the fact that we were able to finally watch Uncle from Another World, but unfortunately, once the first part of the series was running and the second part was about to come out, they had COVID delays, and therefore whatever they released afterwards,
it's game over.
was just not in consideration. So I really like Uncle from Another World.
Oh, yeah, me too. I like Uncle Isekai a
But
lot.
because of COVID and because of production delays, I understand that it can't possibly be fully considered to be the winner of the best comedy series.
And Spy X Family is just crowd pleasing.
Yeah, great. Next, the best anime song. Now, this is different from the best anime score because now we're just talking about the music and not the composition side. Chiki Chiki Bam Bam by Queendom for Your Boy Kangming. Comedy by Gen Hoshino for Spy X Family. My Nonfiction by Makoto Furukawa and Konomi Kohara for Kaguya-sama Love is War Ultra Romantic. New Genesis by Ado for One Piece film Red. Shall We Dance by Riona for Shadow's House Season 2. And the ultimate winner, which also took the hearts of all the Americans that voted for it for the billboards, The Rumbling by Sim for Attack on Titan Final Season Part 2.
I don't understand why you melded the OP and EDs. Is it right?
I think so. Yeah, comedy by Gen Hoshino was the ED. Was the ED for the first Cur.
Why?
Because it's
in anime,
the best song.
in anime and manga. Manga. In anime, OP and EDs are very much distinctly different in terms of vibe, tone, and
one's usually upbeat, one's usually downbeat. It could be the inverse, or it could be something in between. But you do have a very distinctive atmosphere between an opening song and an ending song.
You have the fan category of opening sequence and ending sequence, yet you chose to merge both for the song.
I didn't imagine this one to be a big gripe for you, but you do take your openings and endings fairly seriously.
Yes. I listened through it all. So
okay, but gripes aside.
Yes, I am. No shit.
Now,
like no shit.
Gripes back on. Would you then say, look, like if you're gonna do best opening sequence and ending sequence, you got to do best opening.
Exactly.
Song
that's my point.
You got to do that, right?
Especially because I think.
They had 31 categories this year. Why not just add a 32nd one? It really isn't like, what, are they going to overrun the awards? Really? Like, I'm sure they would have been able to do one more, you know?
I just don't understand sometimes the logic. There must be something, or maybe there isn't. I just don't know. So all I can have to infer is, well, you did the sequence, but you just didn't do the song? What's up with that? That's my logic.
Dumb. It's just dumb.
And OPs and EDs have different kind of priorities, right?
Yeah. Next category is the Best Director Award with Hiroyuki Imaishi for Cyberpunk Edge Runners, Kazuhiro Furuhashi for Spy X Family, Shingo Adachi for Licorice Recoil, Yosuke Hata for Ranking of Kings Cur 2, Yuichiro Hayashi for the Part 2 of Attack on Titan Final Season, and big round of applause for Haruo Tozaki for Demon Slayer Entertainment District Arc. Nothing else we really need to say, right?
I think that this award is well deserved because to be able to balance and not only direct and lead the whole team, to be able to create that production, right? Imagine the pressure, all the things you're juggling. You're kind of the front man. That's the whole point of the directing. People tend to think that, directing is kind of like the person in the on the front lines, the boss chair, but also.
But don't you think like the Demon Slayer also then adds a little extra prestige upon the director?
Absolutely,
you know,
also pressure, and it's just you have to be able to lead and direct people, allocation resources. I think that's a perfect win, in my opinion.
Yep. Now the pinnacle of this awards, which was the biggest surprise. That's not the category itself, but the category is the anime of the year, with the nominations being Attack on Titan final season part 2, Demon Slayer Entertainment District Arc, Lycoris Recoil, because best original has to then be nominated there, Ranking of Kings, Cur 2, and Spy X Family, with the ultimate winner being...
wait. It is Attack on Titan, right? It kept winning a shit ton of stuff,
but
right?
Attack on Titan and Demon Slayer, they've both won a lot of awards.
Yeah. So them
Maybe
just
Spy X Family,
yeah,
right?
because then they
No, shut the fuck up, everybody. It is fucking Cyberpunk Edge Runners as anime of the year for the 7th Crunchyroll Anime Awards. Fucking applause, man, because not only do we have an original anime that won, an original net anime for that, but also one that doesn't stream on Crunchyroll.
And here's the thing that I think is extremely surprising is, where did it even win in other categories? I mean,
like, you would imagine that, like, with Attack on Titan and Demon Slayer and Spy X Family sweeping so many awards, that they must have been, like, the front runners for anime of the year. Yet Cyberpunk Edge Runners, no credit taken away from them. They fully deserve it because
absolutely,
they did win it.
right?
They did win it.
In many ways, it's the most prestigious, right? But if we go off of kind of the colloquial kind of practices in a lot of anime and manga shows or award shows in general, when you win a shit ton of awards, you're going to win the big one. You're going to win the big prize. And to basically have Cyberpunk Edge Runners being acknowledged, and it's not on Crunchyroll, it's Netflix exclusive, it is a very pleasant surprise, such that I think we both saw like the clip of Giga losing his fucking mind.
He was on the verge of tears, on the verge of a mental breakdown.
And I think everyone, including us, was not expecting Cyberpunk Edge Runners.
We were not ready. We were like, I think, like 2 bottles of sake deep at that point. You're just like, hey, Will. They're announcing Anime of the Year. You ready for this? These are the nominations. What the fuck? Cyberpunk Edge Runners won.
And then right after that is just like, are we like dreaming, like wasted, and just like not comprehending what is going on? Because AOT would make sense, Demon Slayer would make sense. I think Lycoris Recoil is the only weak one in the category.
Yeah, I think it just got there because it was best original anime.
I think Ranking of Kings, and I think as well Spy X Family. I think Ranking of Kings technically would be like the second weakest, along with Cyberpunk, in terms of like my educated guess.
If we were to go by Mal standards, Kaguya-sama would have definitely been in for a shout too.
I am super unhappy about that, by the way.
Yeah. So to round out the nominations and winners list breakdowns, now we're getting into it, right? Spy X Family, 19 nominations. Second most nominations goes to Ranking of Kings of 17 nominations, even though they didn't really win all that much. I don't even think they won anything, really. Then in third place was Cyberpunk Edge Runners, rounding out the top 5/6, because there were actually 3 that got tied with 12 apiece, was Attack on Titan Final Season Part 2, Demon Slayer Entertainment District Arc, and My Dress Up Darling. Multiple winning anime series. There were 3 of them with 6 wins. That's where you were saying that they probably would have won Anime of the Year, which was Attack on Titan, Demon Slayer, Spy X Family, with Jujutsu Kaisen 0 getting 3 nominations, and Cyberpunk Edge Runner getting 2 nominations.
You mean wins?
2 wins. Yeah, wins.
Right. So technically, I'm not trying to say that the VA award doesn't count, but because Will and I did not.
We didn't listen to it in Spanish, Portuguese, Castilian. We only listen to it in Japanese. Therefore, it's hard for us to really give our 2 cents on them.
Well, in this case, it's English.
I mean, I'm talking about like any other VA awards as well.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I mean, David Martinez, the English performance. I don't think I actually listened to the English audio ever, but okay, no problem.
Yep. So those were the awards. Now let's talk about the actual event itself, right? So first time they're doing it in Japan, outside of the US, in its 7th year running. It was weird. So they got like a bunch of actors, streamers, directors, and athletes that presented certain awards. And while some of them were kind of fitting, I think the streamers made sense. Some of the other sort of like actors were cool, but I felt that like a lot of their lines and jokes were kind of cringy. And it, like because of the fact that they were talking to a mostly predominantly Japanese speaking audience and riffing off on English based jokes with a translator on the side doing their best to translate, I think a lot of things kind of just fell on deaf ears, and it just was a lot of like sort of awkward silence.
Yeah, and it's very easy for me to sit in this chair and to kind of riff off like, oh, award shows are dumb, Academy Awards are dumb, Crunchyroll Anime Awards are dumb. But when you are trying to manage and plan and execute this anime award show, obviously there are going to be so many things that you're going to have to either compromise on or you just can't achieve, even though you had all the best intentions, right? That being said, I think I want to know why they picked Japan. Obviously, anime, got it.
The studios are there, right?
I get it. But it was never necessarily
the previous 6 years. I mean,
always in the U.S.
Yes, COVID and all that for the last 2 before the 7th one, but it was always in the U.S., right? So why Japan now? I think maybe they just wanted the big entrance to say, fuck COVID, anime industry's back now. Let's just do it in Japan.
And
that's
here's
probably
the
what
thing.
it was.
I think maybe it's a bit of like brand recognition because no one knows who Crunchyroll is in Japan. And Crunchyroll is more of like a Western country dominant. I mean, in Asia, we know because it's Crunchyroll, right? But
let's be real. I don't really think that a lot of Japanese fans would really care all that much about the English, the Castilian, the Portuguese, the Spanish, Arabic, VAs. Not to say that they don't give a fuck about those languages. It's just that like they listen to their anime in Japanese. They don't need subs. So it's not something that they would be all that curious about.
Yeah, and I think honestly, when you take your award show and put it in a country where there's very little recognition and in terms of branding for Crunchyroll, it very much is like, what is this show? And it's live streamed.
Yeah.
I don't know the Japanese reception, to be honest.
I think on one hand there's that, but on the other, I think it's also maybe just Crunchyroll sort of giving the studios, hey, look, there's actually a lot of international recognition that we wanted to showcase for you as well. So, hey, maybe that's just an extra slap in the back, a pat in the back, I mean.
Yeah, so we might be riffing off of that and kind of like throwing shade, but honestly, I think if it's not in the U.S., it can only realistically be in Japan, honestly, right?
Now, this one we might spend a little bit of time on. The judges, which, so there were definitely some people that were very invested in the anime industry. So, for example, like Anime News Network, they had a lot of journalists that were there. They had Mother's Basement. They had Tristan Arcada Gallant from Glass Reflection. They had Honey's Anime, Kyle Shibuya as well, who's,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great pedigree, but very, very invested in the anime industry.
I love Mother's Basement. Jeff is the name of the YouTuber.
I love Tristan from Arcada for Glass Reflection.
Very much manga centric.
Anime is great too.
Yep, a lot of our like Googling searches always come up with Honey Anime. Obviously, we extract almost all of our news exclusively off of Anime News Network, so there's no qualms about those things.
But then when you have people from Vice France, from Gizmodo, from Kotaku, and if you actually looked at the list, there were several people that were listed as anime lovers or anime connoisseurs without really much background as to who they actually are. I'm not questioning like these online websites,
like legitimacy, right?
Yeah, I'm not saying that you're not worthy of being a weeb or like a fucking like anime critic, but it also kind of asks the question like, how do they pick the judges for these awards? Because not all of them are anime centric. Not all of them have any sort of background in anime and manga.
I think part of it is due to circumstance. I think one of the things that at least Will and I offhand kind of know about the Crunchyroll Anime Awards is that at least in the very beginning, especially when it takes place in the US, a lot of streamers and a lot of AniTubers would be present there at the award show, like on the red carpet or whatever. But when either some of them, a lot of them, I mean, for example, the Anime Man, who is one of the trio for Trash Taste podcast, probably the most well known.
I think he was also like given the opportunity to present one of the awards.
He lives in Japan.
Well, at the time he wasn't. He was still in Australia.
Oh shit!
No. He lived in Japan, but they weren't. But they were doing it in the U.S. Right. This is back in 2017.
That's right.
I think Giga has also done some stuff. Sea Dog VA also did some stuff.
Yeah, definitely both of them. I mean, all three of them definitely have been participating. But I think,
and also like a lot of streamers who are also invested in anime have also done voice acting in English for animes, like Lily Pichu. She's also done some stuff there too.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, of course, like a lot of these people that were chosen were very much based in the U.S., but they also did make an effort to try and bring in more international judges and critics to sort of, you know, give it a more international flair, I suppose.
But I think, for example, at least we know Joey from the anime, aka the Anime Man, just is so jaded and does not want to have anything to do with the Crunchyroll Anime Awards ever, and has made it very, very like well known that his stance.
He's
towards
given
it.
a lot of criticism to the point where he doesn't even talk about it anymore now.
Exactly, and I think when maybe a lot of other AniTubers or a lot of streamers or a lot of these, online celebrities or whatnot, share that same opinion, but maybe are not that vocal, your well of potential candidates to be on your panel is going to run dry.
Yeah. So what are your final thoughts? What are your sort of, your pros and cons of this year's anime awards for Crunchyroll? Because, look, the categories, I'm glad that they opened up a lot more stuff. I mean, the fact that there used to only be like 14, 15 categories before, now it's almost like over doubled in size. My main issue is the fact that when you look at a lot of the categories, they kind of have the same nominees for each one. Very clearly a lot of bias towards like shonen anime, which I get that. It's Crunchyroll. Most anime and manga are of the shonen demographic. So I'm not going to quip that,
I think, again, I think I mentioned at the very beginning of the show is have manga and anime-centric awards. For example, look, you don't have... just technically have fun. I know it's a very serious show, right?
Pay tribute to, like, the original
How about
source,
have a best isekai, for example?
Yeah.
Like maybe not as like quote unquote the main, like just like how we have our serious awards and our stupid awards.
Would Uncle Isekai fit into that then, being a reverse?
Yeah, because it's an isekai,
right? Then
reverse or not.
And then you have like stuff that's like reincarnation, but not necessarily an isekai, or like transport into another world and all that.
Technically, is an isekai, I guess.
I think again, that's the word, right? Technically, that's where it's like. But I understand your gripes too about like, well, then why the fuck would Demon Slayer win best drama?
Yeah,
right, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so, no, best fantasy.
Best fantasy. Yeah, and I think just maybe like don't. It's always going to be slightly cringe, or you're always going to get the pushback or the haters with award shows in general, not necessarily the Crunchyroll Anime Awards, but in general, like I don't care.
Yeah. Now, I want to round this off with one question to you, which is specifically about the eligibility period for being nominated for these awards, because they do run from 2 years previous of November to 1 year previous of September. That's the eligibility period. So specifically for the 7th awards, it was November 2021 through to September 2021, which does mean that stuff that was in fall was just not in there. So stuff like Mob Psycho 103, Bocchi the Rock, Eminence and Shadow to Your Eternity, Akiba Maid War, Bleach, those were not eligible. I guess if they ran a little bit longer, they then could be eligible for the next awards, but it's like I don't feel like stuff that released in 2021 would be representative of what released 2022,
I think one of the things that I would, if I could, which I don't have the capacity to, but to alter the format, eligibility, whatever it is the following. The first thing is 4 full seasonals. So it is essentially one whole year's worth, right?
Maybe like 1 or 2 weeks of like a cutoff point,
Yeah.
right?
There's maybe going to be a few that are like a double cur or a split cur, and then it loses out. You're gonna have people that fall between the cracks. So
Well, I mean, there was, for example, like a lot of series that were eligible for 2 different awards. Like for example, like Jujutsu Kaisen, the first season was nominated in the 5th awards and also in the 6th awards, even though it actually was technically outside of the eligibility range. It was only because of the fact that they actually had an early bird screening of their first episode.
So does that mean that Oshinoko gets like that 1 month and a half, 90-minute like premiere, screening? So that counts, even though like 90% of the world cannot access it. Nope. Okay, like you're gonna get those exceptions, right? So I would do 4 seasonals. And then the other thing that I would do, which Reddit has recently implemented for their r/anime awards, is a jury choice and kind of like a fan choice, right? Because when you do that, yes, you're quote unquote diluting the categories, but at the same time, what is quote unquote popular, just like on My Animes, what is popular and what is highly ranked are 2 separate barometers.
They have those, right? Whether it's r/anime, whether it's My Anime List. I think even Anime News Network has something similar to that as well.
Yeah.
They have their own ranking systems.
And I think that acknowledging that just like something can be popular and something can be critically acclaimed does not mean that they mix together, and does not mean that then you have to decide one or the other.
I mean, there are, of course, going to be instances where it's unanimous, where it's both the critic's choice and the reader's choice.
Yeah, you're always going to get people that are unhappy with whatever wins or even whatever gets nominated.
But
so
it's that discourse that we do like sometimes.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, like, I definitely wouldn't have picked certain things, but it's like that's not in my hands, right?
Right. So
unless you want to go by if anime lovers and anime connoisseurs can be judges for the Crunchyroll awards, then technically the GAP should also be eligible to judge the anime awards.
Hey, we live in Asia. We could go to Japan.
That's the other question too. Would you keep it hosted in Japan, or would you bring it back to the U.S.?
Hell no. I'll go back.
It felt weird, didn't it?
Go back to the U.S. of A, bro. Go back to North America, man. I would argue it would even be cooler if they go to Europe, actually.
Europe, really?
Because
do it in Paris?
Because I just think like the U.S. is an obvious choice.
Japan, Crunchyroll USA, right?
Right, and Japan being the birthplace of Japanese animation, but I think very much. How about like a different location to kind of lay down like your mark, And I think in Europe, even for God's sakes, Brazil would be a fucking dope ass choice, bro.
Yeah, South America would be pretty cool.
Or jump around,
Yeah. So rather than bringing it back to the U.S., maybe just do like an international circuit. Like maybe host it 1 year in Sao Paulo, 1 year in Paris, 1 year in Barcelona, maybe 1 year in Mexico, something like that.
I mean, it would be a logistical nightmare. But what if you have like different country-centric awards, right? Because just like how there's different language VAs, maybe a certain subset of the world population highly believes in this one anime when everyone else doesn't. Does that mean then therefore both sides are discounted? No.
Yo, actually, you know what? If you did one that was like Crunchyroll Singapore or Crunchyroll Malaysia or like something in Southeast Asia,
or like different regions, maybe choose
sick.
one that is in Asia and then choose one in North America, something like that.
The possibilities are endless in terms of how they can branch out and, I mean, quote unquote, improve the Crunchyroll awards moving forward. But I get that because they are American and like they want to keep it that way. Hey, look. Then maybe just don't do it in Japan. I'm not like shitting on their decision to do it. I completely understand why they did that, but it seemed a little awkward when they were hosting it in Tokyo, just because of the fact that you brought on like English speaking presenters, but presenting to a predominantly Japanese audience.
And if we go a little bit of like a step further in speculation. Webtoons, Tapas is all being very much up and coming in terms of an adaptation source.
Yeah. I think, though, to be fair, like, in regards to that, like, Korea has its own anime and manga services. Us is Japan. Us is Taiwan. Us is China. So like I can understand why like maybe Crunchyroll wouldn't do one in Korea or do one in China.
Right, like who gives you the right Crunchyroll, right?
Yeah.
Like whoever, country is going to say that to Crunchyroll.
Yeah, I mean
right?
China's got a very, very like,
vibrant,
huge
right?
anime and manga.
Oh, it's
industry.
a Bilibili, right? Yeah,
and they have their own manga services too. So
exactly. So it's a tough thing to juggle because I am not managing, coordinating, creating it. But in general, I don't really focus too much on award shows, and especially one of high produced pageantry.
Yeah. I think we've ran on a fair amount now. What we're going to do is we're going to put this to a close, get into a break, and then we will be talking about not just the Crunchyroll Awards, but anime and manga awards in general, their effects on the general populace, the fans, the streamers, the content creators, and then also the implications and potential rewards it may have for the producers and the creators of said series. So stick around. We'll get back to you in a couple of seconds. Back for the second half of today's After Dark 12, regarding the Crunchyroll Anime Awards as well as anime and manga awards in general. We spent about the past hour sort of riffing off of some of the nominations we agreed on, some of the winners that we just, for the life of us, just could not comprehend how they were even possibly nominated in the first place. But that's all in the past now. And what we want to talk about more is some of the more sort of dry analytical stuff about the current anime and manga awards scene, as well as, I guess, the potential importance, relevance, and potential repercussions of getting nominated and winning these specific anime and manga awards. As always, it's still me, Will, and Jason here is now headache free for the most part, right?
Better.
That's the word I was looking for as well. Better. Hopefully you will be completely cleared of that headache soon. So we have given our 2 cents on how we really felt about the recent Crunchyroll Awards.
It's mid as fuck.
Yeah, it was a weird one because there were some where they were like, yeah, it was great that Cyberpunk Edge Runners won, and it was also a slap in the face to Crunchyroll because they admitted that something that wasn't on Crunchyroll actually was the best anime of the year. And then there was just some stuff that like we just couldn't wrap our heads around. But enough about that.
As with all award shows, there's going to be those kinds of things.
Exactly.
Right? Those kinds of selections and choices.
This is the only time that there has been ire and controversy in terms of what was going down with the Crunchyroll Award. I mean, previous iterations had their own issues. We probably won't go over those because there were 6 of them, and all of them have their own kind of controversies and additions and changes and whatnot. So let's just move past that and maybe shine a light on other anime, manga, and manga awards that happen not just in the U.S., not in just Japan, but just on a more global perspective.
So what I did was I split, obviously, anime and manga, respectively, but within those have basically Western-oriented ones, Western in origin, essentially, and obviously Japanese in origin. If you ask me why I picked those 2 regions in particular, bro, please don't do this to me. I'm just recovering from a headache. I don't need another one, okay? But one of the things that I was quite surprised by is the lack of anime-centric awards. Now, when I say that, I do not mean award shows that do not have an animation category or something along those lines. I meant something more exclusively about anime. And surprisingly, there's pretty much only 2.
There's not that many at all, yeah.
There's one that takes place in Japan, also known as the Tokyo Anime Awards. And then there is the other one, which is the topic of discussion in the first half, the Crunchyroll Anime Awards. Now, I put in
there's a left field one there.
The caveat, which is the Academy Awards and Oscars which has obviously a best
best animation,
animated film category, right? And in the past, probably the most well-known winner that is anime-centric in Japan origins is A Spirited Away. But Your Name didn't win that one year. It got snubbed.
I mean, you also had
Boss Baby, I think, or something.
Yeah.
No, was it Boss Baby?
It definitely wasn't.
No, Mugen Train. It was Mugen Train that got snubbed, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they both got snubbed.
Yeah. I mean, and then there was also other sort of like other film festivals like Cannes with Belle. Like, there's going to be other awards and other festivals that would pay homage and credit towards animations of Japanese origin.
I mean, your boy Yuasa with Inuo, right, has been sweeping a lot of buzz in the award circuits, right?
Yeah, but in terms of like purely exclusive anime award festivals and ceremonies, it would literally be the Tokyo Anime Award and Crunchyroll Anime Awards.
And my take on that is actually expected, in my opinion, because in the grand scheme of things, especially when you compare it to manga, anime is a relatively new medium in the popular zeitgeist. Obviously, animation has existed, especially the Japanese origin, has existed for a long-ass time.
And we did also spend the whole episode previously talking about the proliferation of anime in general, right? So would it make sense then that there's going to be more than just the Tokyo anime? I mean, there's probably a lot of other like Japanese anime awards that like they take exclusively in Japan, which we can't really translate all of them.
Honestly, I did not even... I mean, I'm not surprised there was something called the Tokyo Anime Awards. I didn't even knew it existed. I'm super not surprised that
neither of us are Japanese.
Exactly.
Neither of us live in Japan, and neither of us know how to be able to translate.
It could be very prestigious, right? But it is just not something that at least Will and I have encountered a lot from a Western / outside of Japan perspective.
And I think it's also just down to the fact that if we're talking about like prevalence of anime in terms of streaming power, it's hard to go up against Crunchyroll. I mean,
especially after the merger,
yeah,
right? There was just, what can you do?
I mean, are we gonna get a High Dive Awards, right?
Yeah,
No, right?
No.
So until there's something else that breaks into the industry, we're not going to see anything beyond the Crunchyroll.
If Oshinoko wins Anime of the Year, I will fucking go crazy. I think that would be hilarious because it's very likely that if all being equal, it will have a very good chance of winning. But it's just like...
At least getting nominated,
exactly.
Right?
It would be like admitting to David and you're the Goliath being like, oh, fuck, okay, fine. Oshinoko was a good anime, that kind of thing.
We're gonna buy out High Dive.
Yeah, it's gonna be fucking hilarious. But so we have already waxed lyrical about Crunchyroll Anime Awards. We don't know jack shit about the Tokyo Anime Awards. Not surprised that it exists.
Or any like Japan exclusive ones too, right?
Right.
That's just not knowledge that is easily accessible or easily translatable.
But what we do know a lot about, and also have mentioned numerous times on the podcast, is manga-centric awards. And usually this is always a lot more easier to understand and define because for better or for worse, the Japanese-centric manga awards are in many ways tied to the publishers. I mean, you get like the Shugokukan Manga Awards,
Manga Taisho, the Sugoi Awards, like the Kono Manga ga Sugoi.
So that one is quite interesting because it's like a survey, right? It's a
it's a popular vote,
right? And we always mention the Sugoi Japanese awards because it is very much a very reliable indicator of hype within like the anime sphere or manga sphere.
And running off of that, again, not so much an awards list, but definitely like a sort of popularity survey in terms of what manga you want to see get adapted.
Exactly, because when they receive either that award or recognition, then we can pretty much easily surmise like, oh, these are the mangas that are gonna get an anime adaptation or English publication, and then get onto everyone's radar when it gets the anime adaptations, right?
It certainly helps. I mean, like, you look at any year for the Sugoi Awards, and the top 10 usually do get adapted for each year at some point.
I mean, Comey can't communicate. We waited forever, but yes.
Chainsaw Man, we waited forever.
But we have it now too, right?
Exactly.
So perfect, right? I think the Kodansha, what was that the full name for the Kodansha Awards?
The Manga Taisho one?
That's the Kodansha one, right?
I think so. I can't confirm, but you speak your mind.
I fucking look like an idiot if I say that. I'm pretty sure there's also like the thing is that I don't know what other at least Japanese centric awards that at least would be.
It's just called the Kodansha Manga Award.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not the Taisho, obviously.
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Isn't there like a Tezewa? Oh, shit.
The Manga Taisho is a Japanese comics award recognizing achievements in manga.
Right.
Yep.
So essentially, Taisho, Kodansha, Shogakukan, and Sugoi, especially at least for Will and I would say Taisho and Sugoi usually is like the ones that at least especially Sugoi.
If we see them, then within the next 2-3 years, we expect them to be adapted. If you rank highly in those awards,
Exactly, especially if they win like consecutively, right? So, on the Western front, though, this is actually quite interesting because you get a number of awards that, in many ways, has very little to do with manga until quite recently, right?
It's almost more like literature based, right? You have the Eisner Award, the Harvey Awards. In some relevance, like the New York Times bestsellers,
Right, just like how the Sugoi survey is considered an award, at least in my opinion. I think the New York Times bestseller is an extremely good barometer of like people buying the actual product and then therefore receiving recognition to be on that bestseller list. I mean, how many times have you heard like this book being a New York Times bestseller, right, and then becomes like a Western film?
Yeah, and then you also have stuff that's like not necessarily of like national relevance, but definitely online relevance, which is like the My Anime list. You gotta read this. You should read this manga.
Yeah, which
list.
is a relatively new
only
implementation.
Came out, only like 2 months ago, like literally this year. And then you also have, I guess, like awards that come up from like Mal discussion boards. r/anime has their own. Anime Corner has their own in terms of like monthly, weekly, daily rankings, as well as annual rankings and stuff as well.
Right. Usually with at least r/anime or a lot of these anime forums, it's more geared towards
the fans.
The anime fans. Of course, they also have. I think Bookwalker must have, right?
Yeah,
like they have to have,
or
right?
at least they'll like release a list of the best selling of the year, right? Like,
right,
which makes sense. It's all numbers in the end.
So, because there's only one choice for the anime awards in Japan and in the West each, what would kind of be like the main one that you would ask people to focus on for the Japanese and for the Western for manga, in your opinion?
You're talking about for like Japanese like production and publication studios, or
like the manga awards of note that are Japanese in origin?
Well, that's the thing. I think that historically and even now in this age, Japanese companies, especially when it comes to anime and manga, they usually care a lot more about what's happening domestically as opposed to what's happening internationally. So they'll, like, for example, like if you talk about Demon Slayer, they'll care more about like the domestic box office, but also add on the international one because damn, like everyone else in the world really fucking loves this shit.
No,
but there's also manga like publication companies that would look at, for example, you know how whenever we look at like research for how much anime or how much manga is in circulation, a lot of times we don't know those numbers are divided between domestic circulation and global circulation. And I think that like Japanese companies would probably care more about what's happening within the country as opposed to what's happening outside of the country.
Okay, my bad on maybe being a bit too vague. I meant like, do you care about Taisho? Do you care about Shogakukan, or do you care about Sugoi if you had to pick between one of the three?
I mean, it wouldn't really matter all that much for me because in the end, it's just down to if this manga will get an adaptation. And again, that comes down to how well it performs domestically. For me, it's that age-old question of, do the awards even really matter at the end of the day when you know it's all just down to being a popularity contest?
I mean, absolutely, right? I think that is a question for not only anime and manga centric awards, but literally everything, right?
Yeah. Like, for example, like for sure there's going to be manga series like give you an example of Kingdom, right? I don't really know all that many people that read or watch Kingdom, but it's insanely popular in Japan to the point now that there are 4 seasons of it. The manga is still ongoing. It's got a fuck ton of copies in circulation, but that's because of the fact it has a very strong domestic performance. So whether or not it would have ever been nominated for anything in the Crunchyroll Awards, I don't really think that the publishers would care all that much. As long as it is able to consistently perform in Japan, yeah, maybe a Taisho Award would be a lot more important than getting a Crunchyroll nomination. Who knows? There's a lot of different intricacies that go into like business that happens in Japan versus business that happens in the U.S. and elsewhere, right? It's never going to be like what works here works there as well. Yeah, that would be my take. Like when you ask me like what I feel would be like awards of importance, that's a really hard thing to answer because like if we talk about like IRL stuff, right? Like in terms of the Grammys and Emmys and the Oscars and all that. Yeah, there's going to be stuff that gets nominated and wins, but they are more often than not movies that I care about. There's going to be other movies, other TV series, other songs that I like more that don't even come close to being nominated, and that just comes to personal choice. I mean, if you go back to the Crunchyroll Awards, half of them I don't agree with, but is my say going to have any sway whatsoever? No, because again, it comes down to what the judges, what the corporation, and what the general populace of fans really care about, and I might not be part of any of those three.
Right. So my opinion on manga and centric awards. I mean, obviously the anime one speaks for themselves, and we've already talked about it, right?
Did you know that there actually was a manga award for the Crunchyroll Awards before? In the first ever Crunchyroll Anime Awards, there actually was a best manga.
And how did that pan out?
That was the only one that ever had a manga award.
R.I.P. But I think that one of the problems, as you said, right, with outside of Japan, international versus domestic inside Japan.
Oh, sorry, no, that was actually the second awards. The first award, just 14 nominations, 14 categories. The second Crunchyroll Anime Awards had a best manga, which was won by My Lesbian Experience of Loneliness.
A very good manga,
but that was also the only award that had a best manga category.
Right. Shit. Damn. Very lonely winner.
Yeah.
So yeah, but so I unfortunately agree very much with Will that why should we care about the the manga awards that are in Japan centric, right? Because for a lot of us, for example, with the Manga Sugoi, right? With the exception maybe the most hotly anticipated, oh, you gotta adapt this. Almost like how many times have we saw like awards lists and like half of them or like 3/4 of them are not even in publication in outside of Japan, right?
More often for like the best shoujo series, right? The best shoujo mangas, like you might recognize like out of the 100, like maybe like 10 of them, but those are the ones that you know already adapted. The rest of them like legitimately don't have English translated titles. It's just the phonetic Japanese.
Yeah, and on top of all that, in addition to that, is just because you win the manga awards or it gets a lot of recognition does not guarantee that it will ever get an anime adaptation. And there's so many manga series that Will and I have read that probably will never ever get an anime adaptation or gets it like 6 years down the road, you know, even when everything's all said and done and finished, right? And so it's a different ball game. However, I think Manga Sugoi is, at least in my opinion, the most useful one for me personally to know, okay, these are the titles, then maybe like 2-3 years later or whatever, it'll show up.
Or at least they're worth reading right now if they have English translations.
Exactly, because some of them would have English translations already.
There's some credibility to those, right? We're not saying that like the Crunchyroll awards don't have credibility. We're just saying that like more often than not, we would agree with the Manga Sugoi choices as opposed to what drivel some of the categories were, nominated for, like for the Crunchyroll awards.
And with the Harvey and Eisner from the Western side for for manga-centric award, I keep saying anime, for manga-centric awards, it's awesome. It really is. But I would focus on the New York Times bestseller as well as the My Anime List. You should read this manga only because it perpetuates that kind of momentum and that kind of zeitgeist, right? Maybe in the future, people will care a lot about what happens domestically in Japan, as well as they care about Harvey and Eisner awards. Not saying that they're irrelevant, but it's very easy for you to be like, oh, okay, you survey a bunch of people. These are the mangas in Japan that are dope. Oh, they're on the New York Times bestseller, sold a shit ton of copies. Yeah. Okay, you should read this.
My only issue with the New York Times bestseller one is that it just seems that there's a lot of books that claim to be a New York Times bestsellers. It's the prerequisites and the requirements as to what allows for you to be a bestseller, what allows for you to be nominated for stuff. It's the procedures behind the scenes that
they don't tell you how the sausage is made, right?
Yeah.
But I have to say, though, My Anime Lists, you should read this manga, I thought was pretty well done.
Yeah, because as well, like when it was published, it's like, oh, wow, a lot of the stuff they put out there, 75% of it, yeah, we agree with. There's some other stuff where it's like, that's to be expected, or like we wouldn't have picked that. But it seems to be a little bit more objective. It's hard to really say because there's so much red tape everywhere.
And to my knowledge, they're all either available in English or they're going to be available because they have already announced. Whether or not they got released yet is a different thing, but the fact that you can check out all of this, whereas in the Japan domestic manga awards, it's like, well, what am I going to do with this name that won, or highly ranked if I can't even read it, right? So that's my take on that.
Yeah. I mean, no doubt as well. It's like, as much as we shit on some anime and manga awards or like specifically some of the nominations and winners, like we applaud that at least there is such a presence for fans like us to actually tune in and see what the general populace is looking at, what supposed judges are like judging for these specific awards, because it just helps to perpetuate that the scene is growing and that we are getting more and more eyes on this particular genre of media that deserves to get more popularity, that deserves to get more eyes on them.
I mean, Crunchyroll has only done this 7 times. So
only 7.
So cut them some slack, and we should cut them some slacks. Not necessarily give them no shit when they deserve it, but also like, hey, they're getting in on the ground floor. It's only going to get more relevant, anime as a medium, manga as a medium. So why not, right?
And at the same time, just acknowledge that certain things are just going to have to be business decisions, and
absolutely,
we can't argue with that.
So for critics, for better or for worse, listeners, Will and I are technically critics or content creators. It very much is useful anime or manga awards to at least figure out a barometer in terms of how people feel in this space. Whether or not we agree, at least we know what a certain subset of people feel about a certain subset of anime and a certain subset of mangas, right?
And let's not forget, it also provides one of the most important things to creators like us. It provides content.
Yep.
It allows for us to sort of dissect what's really going on in terms of what other people feel about anime and manga, what's going on in the industry, how the industry perceives certain series, and it also allows us to, get fucking angry at certain things and put up a video and or a podcast episode, just talk shit about it.
Because I think Will and I very much agree that in the West, at least for the time being, despite having more relevance than ever before, it's still anime is king compared to manga and especially compared to light novels. However, we have used good mangas, to be like, oh, 100% they're going to get an anime adaptation. And then
when it does get adapted, we don't watch it immediately because we already know what happens.
And then we feel like an idiot. But everyone else watches the anime and is like, yo, bro. And we'll be like, I mean, yeah.
We at least did the job somehow.
Exactly. Yeah. But we're also putting it on the radar for you guys to know that, oh, maybe you should check out the manga. I mean, that's why we do the ASAP anime series adaptation primer, is so that you can sort of give you advanced kind of knowledge and notice, be like, yo, these are the mangas to check out for that are going to have an anime adaptation, right? So,
yeah. So, moving forward, though, do you feel that, like, with the way that especially this recent Crunchyroll award came out, with the way that we're possibly seeing an opening for other companies, other syndications to start rolling out their own awards lists, do you feel that there's going to be a point where there's a lot more relevance, there's a lot more sort of like acceptance from fans regarding these anime awards? Because it's never going to be like everybody agrees with whatever gets nominated. More often than not, you would get a lot of shit talking, shit posting. You would get people just slandering certain series,
like fuel for the fire and ammunition, right?
Yeah, giving the haters something to hate.
I think when anime and manga bleeds into popular culture to a certain point, you're going to get people that will rely on things like the Crunchyroll Anime Awards or whatever manga award there is to dictate what they read or what they watch. Just like at least I know personally that a lot of my friends will focus on the award, Oscars or Emmys or Golden Globes, as a way to be like, oh, these are the things that are maybe I should check out, rather than, oh, I actually care about the award shows themselves.
Yeah. When things get like more publicly recognized, visible, or publicly praised, the inverse also happens in that you then become open to criticism. That you open up the floodgates for the haters to come and bombard you and say, no, you actually don't deserve to be the best, blah, blah, blah.
Because you're always going to get those subsets of people.
You can't make everyone happy.
But you're also going to get a subset of people that either don't have the time to really figure out the minutia or even care in certain ways about, oh, this didn't win or this got nominated or not. But then when they see the award nominations and then the winners, is a very clear indication, at least by this group of people, be like, these are the things that we're telling you that these are good. And more often than not, even if we feel like the Crunchyroll Anime Awards is kind of mid at the moment, all those shows are very easy to recommend to almost any single person that is even remotely interested in anime.
So in general, when it comes to like anime awards, right, especially with like fans who, or at least fans who either tune in or just know about what's going on, do you feel that there's more people that are like praising the shit and protecting the stuff that they love, hating stuff that they don't really care about, but for some reason those particular series end up winning over their own personal favorites? Or do you feel that actually, you know what, people are just kind of indifferent, it's an award, move on to the next thing?
Because, well, we're weebs, and weebs by default are just like to argue when we have waifu wars and have that be kind of like a very popularized term.
And also, like, right after the Crunchyroll Award, right, spring 2023 started, so like we have no time to sit back and digest it all. We have to end up going on watching more anime anyway. So yeah,
and to be very honest, other than maybe like the last two, and only mainly due to the podcast, do I really give a shit about the Crunchyroll Anime Awards? Not necessarily saying
you only care about what happens every 12 episodes when we do the GAP finale. That's the main thing.
Dude, that is the real awards, right? I mean, hey, they copied us. We did serious-ish and stupid-ish awards, like the fun category and the serious category.
The fun category wasn't even the fun. The fun category was just, it's voice acting performances of other languages. It was best character design.
Have you thought maybe that's their definition of fun, dude?
Oh man, you got.
I mean, they took the fun out of Funimation, so really,
I guess the most quote unquote fun they did was the quote unquote must protect at all costs award.
Honestly, that's like
which they also ripped off from us.
Honestly,
They ripped that from us. We did that 2 years ago.
They need to like do the isekai. They need to do something, right? Or like maybe something that if you know that the vocal voice, like the collective voice of weebs,
you gotta stop being so 3-piece tuxedo with a bow tie like uniform. You gotta like let loose and like weeb out.
unless if you're Connor and have the JoJo suit,
To be fair, though, his suits are nice.
then the
They're also way too expensive.
like what, $5,000
minimum.
Yeah, the Versace one, right?
They're so expensive.
But my point is that this, I understand trying to make it very formal and very official, and kind of have this kind of.
Do you think it's just a continual
ballroom?
Do you think it's just a continual effort to sort of, like, quote unquote, like legitimize anime and manga within like the general diaspora, the general sort of view of media?
I think so, because outside of people that are into anime and manga, at least currently, no one, if you were to do cosplaying instead of people wearing tuxedos and suits and very formal like ballroom, gala and like dinner and presentation,
like in ways like
it's like Comic-Con then at that point,
at
right?
least then, like like if because at least then it's like people who care about Emmys and Golden Globes and Oscars and whatnot. Some of those people would also be like, oh, what happened with Comic-Con and all that stuff. Do you think that with the way that they're trying to sort of, I guess, globalize the the country club, the Crunchyroll
I
Anime
mean, it
Awards,
is very much like a country club,
it's
like
something
wearing
else,
like cigars and like, hey, my butler is about to arrive.
How do you say that we can't communicate?
Are we
was
playing
definitely-
backgammon now and bridge?
Maybe some bocce ball later. I'm so sad to hear that Bocce the Rock was not nominated for this year's Crunchyroll Anime Awards. But maybe best of luck for next year.
It was Bocce the Rock, not Bocce.
Oh, I do apologize.
Or
for
are you mixing up Baki?
I suppose I'm not so eloquent as to get the name correct, but I do hope that Bocce does better for next year. No, we're taking off the tux. We're not going to be presenting any awards like that. But like, do you think it's like with that sort of like globalization of this particular award? Do you think that maybe they're trying to sort of get it to that level so that when people talk about Oscars and Emmys and in some ways Comic-Con, that the Crunchyroll stuff can also bleed into those conversations?
I would like to imagine a world where anime and manga is synonymous with, let's say, physical written novels and like films, right? In terms of like quote unquote prestige, in terms of legitimacy, quote unquote, right?
Yeah, and we don't have to wait for like the Oscars or the Grammys and all that to like recognize it. Like usually because it's just like one nomination out of like 5 or 6, and then luckily it'll win in 2001 or 2019 and whatnot. But rather, like, we want it to be more of like a continual kind of presence, recognition.
But on the other fucking hand, like,
do
come
we want to keep this community to ourselves?
Like,
at the same time?
Comic-Con is like a celebration of comics, Marvel, DC, Image, all those. No, I was about to say Vertigo, but Vertigo doesn't exist anymore. But the point is that.
But then, like, on that note, then do you feel that like the hardcore like DC Marvel fans would care about what happens to like the stuff that comes up from the DC comic movies or the MCU movies and stuff? Like, do you think that there is that direct correlation just because they're fans of the original Marvel properties, or do you feel that those two worlds are kind of separate? Because I know a lot of people who watch MCU and DC movies that haven't read a single Batman, Spider-Man, fucking like Fantastic Four, X-Men comic.
How many people do we know that only watch anime and not read manga or light novel or any of the above, right?
Yeah.
Or don't give a shit if it's like, oh, I heard of Jump just like I've heard of DC.
What's a visual novel?
The fuck? I mean, isn't novel you use your eyes so it's visual? Like literally, like I I would not be surprised, and I will not like shit on people for literally having that misconception.
Not knowing at all, right?
Exactly.
Because it is like legitimately.
Like, what the fuck is a light novel, honestly? How do you explain that to someone?
Yeah.
I know why it's called light novel,
But why
like,
does your title have like 50 words and like each one runs for like 30 volumes?
yes.
You know?
Like, why is there a manga adaptation if there is a novel of it already? Isn't it just like graphic novel and paperback? I mean, it's very legitimate, especially when you come from, you know, the background of comic books, right? So all I can say is, if it does come to a point where anime and manga is so massive of an industry that it is like, oh, if you don't know what E3 is for video games, then you're a fucking idiot in terms of then you're not like a nerd in that sense, right? Or maybe like street cred. I don't even know. But I think early days of anime and manga, even though it is so massive now, there will come a day when we'll be like, did you know that Crunchyroll actually was a streaming service at one point? Wait, you mean they don't run fitness clubs?
Yeah, I mean, dude, the fact that
Papa.
Crunchyroll, Papa, tell me the history of Crunchyroll.
お父さん, why?
Daddy, I was in your city this morning and I saw you had a business card for a Funimation. What was that?
Wait, JoJo, you were there when JoJo had started part 1? It's on now 47.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that point. I think maybe that.
I welcome that. Honestly.
Maybe that also just highlights the fact that, like, as you mentioned, there's only really been 7 Crunchyroll awards in terms of like streaming services for anime.
I mean, how long has
manga.
the Academy Awards existed?
Yeah.
Like, way longer than 7 years, more like 7 decades, if anything. Like, kind of like that. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, for sure.
So if it takes them that long to even get to this point for the Academy Awards, and we still shit on them, think about where Crunchyroll is at right now in its infancy. They're like a fetus at this point.
Yeah. My only fear is just the fact that because of the fact that Crunchyroll does have a stranglehold on like Western localizations as well as syndications for anime and manga.
That's a very good point, actually. Yeah. So I guess the last thing that we could talk about before we go into show notes and housekeeping is the impact on the industry. And to be very honest, I do not have the know-how, expertise, or the stats to back up anything that I'm about to say, other than I don't think anyone gives a shit, other than a certain subset that give a shit or wants people to give a shit.
I mean, look, for example, like the director that did Nomadland, I think was it? And then she ended up getting the green light to direct that new Marvel movie, whatever it was called, the one that did terribly.
The Eternals?
The Eternals, yeah. Like, it's like, yes, wonderful. You got like a winner of awards for directing and whatnot, and then you start directing something else, and you're like, oh, actually, this was a crock of crap.
Yeah, and then you have Mark Summers, who I think is it Mark Summers, Mark Webb, who did shit, I forgot his name. The guy who directed 500 Days of Summer ends up directing The Amazing Spider-Man, which actually was okay, was pretty good, decent, pretty
Amazing
decent.
Was
right?
good, yeah.
With Andrew Garfield as the Spider-Man, right? So it's like 2 separate, obviously one male, one female, but they're both from indie scenes that all of a sudden got a huge property, Marvel property at that, and one is more successful and one is panned to shit.
And it's not any fault of her own. It's just how the general populace perceives it. And in many ways, also then kind of affects how critics would see it too. So we're not saying that award shows, particularly in this instance, the Crunchyroll Anime Award show, like has no relevance or importance on the industry. We just don't have the metrics to back it up.
Yeah. Also, Netflix will never publicize their stats unless if it's to boast. Crunchyroll,
or to cry about how they lost so many subscribers and they're changing our subscription plans.
And who knows the impact of winning awards and then also having an uptick in Crunchyroll consumption of those shows. I'm sure maybe there are some. Sure.
In this instance, it's like, oh wow, Demon Slayer and Attack on Titan won this many awards.
Wait, where is it streaming?
I'm sure they're going to be super, super popular now. You know what I mean? Like, oh, no fucking shit.
Exactly. Where is the quote unquote indies of anime and manga?
Cyberpunk Edge Runners.
Yeah, I guess, right? So it's hard.
Even though, yes, it was backed by Netflix and whatnot, but it's like that. In this particular instance, it's pretty indie compared to the mainstays of Kaguya-sama, Spy X Family, Demon Slayer, Attack on Titan, and all that.
I mean, our definitions of quote unquote anime is now at least more ambiguous than it was previously, like in previous years, right? With webtoons and the more Western oriented shows that are very much
like
inspired.
Dongman as well.
Exactly.
China's coming out too.
Exactly. We're ignoring that whole subset, but hello, there are like a billion people, right? That obviously not all of them watch anime, but I'm not surprised if they all do, because it's huge.
I mean, the fact that you will never see a Crunchyroll awards in China simply because China already has way too many of its own awards and its own publications and whatnot, and also their own services for Japanese and Korean anime and manga. So like,
and good luck trying to get everyone to agree on the same page or even coordinate. Right? It's going to be a massive endeavor.
Like, look at it this way, real. Like with the Crunchyroll awards this year, they every year they say, "Oh, we've doubled the amount of judges we have. They increased the amount of judges we had. We're opening it up beyond American judges and also including international judges." This year alone, I think they had like 40 to 50 judges. Is that really enough to sort of judge the whole anime industry that happened of the past year? You know what I mean? And yes, you're opening it up to fans too, but you know what happens when you open up public voting? It's usually just like, oh, let's just vote the shit out of what we think is going to win, and then we'll make it the winner.
I mean, my anime list like falls victim to that all the fucking time.
Yeah.
So it's just the way it is when you make certain things public, and obviously, when you don't make it public, everyone complains, just like we are, being like, well, what is this defined as, and why is this fantasy, and what is that drama, and why
did you pick that judge to be a judge on this panel and whatnot?
And who are we to say? But look, we have the GAP finale awards, and so far everyone seems to be liking that.
And
right?
we're completely objective with those two. Right?
Absolutely,
no bias whatsoever.
Well, hold on, let me ask the other judge on this panel. Hey, Will, you think it's legit, right? The GAP finale awards?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let me ask myself. Yeah, okay, yeah, I think it's legit too. Okay, 100%. Wow, unanimous decision. Shit.
Yeah, well, there you go. That just shows the legitimacy of the GAP finale awards.
And just like that, we are at the end of After Dark number 12. You can always reach us through our email, gapalette@gmail.com. That is GAPALETTE @gmail.com. All lowercase, all one word. Using the handle @PaletteGood, that is also another way to reach us, or through our GAP Discord. Invite link is in the show description. You can always check out our website at www.goodanimepalette.com. All lowercase, all one word. Music credits for this After Dark is 3XQ by Baron Grand. Our break music is Botai by Oi. And our outro music is I Don't Mind the Instrumental Version by Particle House. You can always support the music artists that we feature by listening to them on Spotify, Apple Music, or other various music listening platforms. And of course, our royalty-free music was provided by Epidemic Sound. If you're interested, you can always sign up using the referral link in our show description. Terms and conditions apply. Look, Will, any closing thoughts about Anime and Manga Awards or the Crunchyroll Anime Awards in particular?
I just think it'd be just to see more of them. That's basically it. Just get more awards out, and then maybe when we get more people putting eyes on these awards, whether it is all of them, one of them specifically, at least it's like, again, I hate to keep talking about the proliferation of anime and manga, but that's really the point that we've come to now with anime and manga. We've gotten to a point now where a large population of the world knows, watches, and or likes anime and manga. So we should definitely have more of a platform where we can celebrate and recognize that we've got great works in this medium.
My closing thoughts is as follows: is regardless of the direction, trajectory of anime, manga, light novels, or anything of that sort, I think we can all agree that the must protect at all costs should be all of the above in terms of anime and manga, light novels. That we can bicker and be mean to each other all we want, but when the enemy of my enemy is my friend, we should fuck everyone else up. Anime, manga, light novel, visual novel, all are king. And they can't mess up our family. Only us can mess up our own.
At the end of the day, the real winner is anime and manga. And the GAP, the Good Anime Palette Podcast.
Yep.
I think we'll sign off with that. Goodbye, everybody.